My startup was the Cruise by Step, and it was an electric scooter company, and we helped during the pandemic kind of reignite the hospitality industry and essentially be a vessel for hotels to connect with their communities, let people know that despite 2 years of a very different world, that it could still be a beautiful world and we could still find meaning in it.
Right.
It's the resilience of it.
I can't imagine how challenging it could be to start a new business during COVID times.
But what led me down this path of hospitality is, long story short, I'm adopted from China. I always felt like this life was a second chance, and trying to make the most of it should be important to all of us, definitely, and especially important to me. Finding my place in this world was something I struggled with for a really long time when I was young, and trying to find my own identity and what I could do to make a difference.
What are the top 3 strategies you would recommend to someone to start and grow up their own business?
I was okay with making mistakes, and you fail fast, you learn faster. I just want to be a potato today. I want to be like a little roasted potato, like warm and cozy, but like soft.
Again, I want to learn.
Herkle-durkle. Kind to others. It's the most simple piece of advice, but it holds true. And your attitude determines your altitude. And that's a big one. So today, Alton, I just like to pull with you on the YouTube video. This is amazing. And I told him that one day, I hope that he makes these for his guests, because this is so cool. Made in Turkey, product of Turkey. I'm really happy to have been here, and not just in conversation, which I always, like I said, believe should never be timed when it comes to something that should be more of an open conversation. I think that when we talk out loud to ourselves, we also help reinforce messages we've been trying to be more intentional about as well. I've learned a lot from this, and I've taken a lot from this. I knew before arriving here that this would be valuable to me. Hopefully it's valuable to you. Bye.
Hello everyone, welcome to the 3rd episode of AD Show podcast. I'm very excited today. I have a great speaker and a friend. I have the great pleasure of introducing my next speaker, Annie Luke. Annie, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Of course.
It means a lot.
It's so good to be here, Alton. Thank you so much for inviting me to episode 3. I just love being part of it. Your journey, I think, is going to be just exemplary of what it takes when it comes between your network and your friendships and the support you get to build something really great.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
And you have had a remarkable career as a young professional with vast experience and success. Could you share your story with us and what inspired you to venture into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, of course. I always say that you should leave people and places better than you found them. And so what I love about not just the entrepreneurial world of things, but hospitality in general, is that you're here to serve your community, and you're here to make people feel cared for and feel seen and heard. And so I just found I created a startup with several amazing individuals too, that really was trying to put the best foot forward and give people the opportunity to connect with their community and vice versa. And I suppose like my startup was the Cruise by Step, and it was an electric scooter company, and we helped during the pandemic kind of reignite the hospitality industry and essentially be a vessel for hotels to connect with their communities, let people know that despite 2 years of a very different world, that it could still be a beautiful world and we could still find meaning in it. That startup has since closed on our own terms, and we were really happy about what we did. We just had different directions, and we all had different passions, and we wanted to support each other through that next chapter of our lives. But what led me down this path of hospitality is, long story short, I'm adopted from China. I always felt like this life was a second chance, and trying to make the most of it should be important to all of us, definitely, and especially important to me. Finding my place in this world was something I struggled with for a really long time when I was young, and trying to find my own identity and what I could do to make a difference. And that pressure can be debilitating sometimes for people, but it can also be really empowering. It can be finding meaning, taking a walk, looking at the beautiful area that we're in today. It can be finding meaning in the simple pleasures of a conversation with a friend. It doesn't have to be hitting every milestone all the time. And so when I was working on this entrepreneurial idea and this startup with my friends, we were just asking ourselves, at the end of the day, what do we want to do? We want to help the environment, and we want to find people that care about it and care about connecting with others and bring those things together. And we accomplished that. And I'm really proud of that. And it doesn't really end when the startup ends. It helps change your mindset, and it helps you unlearn habits about what you're capable of and learn different capacities and different competencies, and really feeling the energy from reaching a potential that you didn't even know was in your path to begin. So we kind of climbed that mountain and saw the next one, and that's why I love this industry.
So you started your startup during COVID times?
I did. I started it. So we started it, I was furloughed March. We started it in May. I had just applied for I remember because I had just finished applying in April to do my master's of business. And within a week I got accepted into it, as well as running into a neighbor that I hadn't seen for 3 years, having a random conversation about this idea that he had. And then 3 days later I was part of the emails, and we were talking about incorporation, and it was a strange time. A lot of people commented, what a weird time to start a business when everything's down, but it's the people who are, when everything is down, that get back up.
Right.
It's the resilience of it.
I can't imagine how challenging it could be to start a new business during COVID times, because everything is uncertain. We didn't know what was going on, and we didn't know what to expect in the future. So I'm sure it took lots of courage and your entrepreneurship spirit to do that. So really kudos to you. And I'm so excited actually about what we will be discussing today, and I'm so excited to go into the details. I know you kind of answered my next question, but my question is, what drove you to start your own business? How did your previous experiences prepare you for this journey?
Oh my goodness, such a great question actually. I think, as you mentioned, when things were down during the pandemic and there were a lot of limitations, you learn how to swim against that current if you want to. And what I would say to your question was, I didn't plan on starting a business ever. I've always been someone who has a 5, 10, 15-year plan, thinking about like what I would like to do in my kind of eclipse career after I retire, all those things. And I can guarantee you, I never had start my own business in that category ever. And I think that speaks to a lot of the fluidity of your mindset, and how even if it's not in the plan, you should always be open to things, because you don't know what that's going to lead to. My startup allowed me to network with all the general managers. It opened those doors for me because I chose to open them. And you kind of have to be a little bit gutsy, and it gets you back to like, I was riding up 2 hotels, knocking on doors with an electric scooter, asking to speak to the general manager. Never could have ever thought that was going to happen or be my reality. But
I mean, such a brilliant idea, right? During COVID times, there was a lockdown, and even the transportation system, the entire travel industry was impacted, and you are coming up with the idea of a new business, which is electric scooters, which helps people to travel and commute, at the same time practice distancing.
And I think you're right there, where electric scooters wasn't just a concept, it was a concept of driving guests to hotels that had electric scooters. We had a guest that actually canceled their reservation with one hotel because they saw that one of our hotel partners had our electric scooters, and so they booked there instead. So we really helped quite literally drive that business. And what excited me was about finding the solutions. You go to all these countries. I went to Prague, and the best way that I could find my way back to my hostel was because there was a litter of scooters on the sidewalk that led me back home. It was like the crumbs leading me back to my hostel. And I wanted to remove that degradation. I mean, our landscapes shouldn't have to suffer because we want to move in more practical manners. It should be going together in alignment. And so helping fuel the hospitality economy, having those partnerships, making sure that they're docked within a hotel so that they're not out and about getting stolen, or not that they didn't get stolen because everyone loves it. I get it. It's a great product. It's actually flattering. Thank you so much. But it was a really good way to get everyone connected. And like I said, I never really saw that coming. I would say my previous experience helped me tenfold, and I never imagined I would be reinforced so strongly by those skills. The soft skills that we are trained through our corporate, training, drink the Kool-Aid kind of thing, do come in handy. And you have to find meaning in those trainings of what is innately within you and what you have to strengthen. That's not. And I would say my networking experience was really helpful. My public speaking experience was helpful from both university as well as through my formal career. Being able to break those conversations from, it goes from when I was a food and beverage leader, I had to go to tables and do quality checks and just naturally open up those conversations and do those little sales pitches that don't feel like sales pitches. They feel like just welcoming, inviting you to a relationship. Hey, do you want to have a relationship with our company? We would love to be able to both benefit from each other and be able to show that your hotel is the first on the map for us. And the loyalty mattered, and being able to build something together with our partners was really meaningful. After our first couple seasons, we always had, for our first 2 seasons, we only had 3 seasons, but for the first 2, we always had post-season wrap-up conversations, one-on-ones with our GMs, asked, what can we do better? And it wasn't just an annual thing. We had feedback forums where the staff were able to message us, and we did make things better because of them. They helped us make us better. And being open to that and knowing that you're not going to know it all, nor should you ever, that's why you lean on each other.
Exactly.
Right? So,
okay, I mean, you have made some very meaningful statements, and actually I'm learning a lot from you. I mean, not that because you're my speaker. I would say this is my first time talking to an entrepreneur in depth, and not that you're my friend or my guest speaker. I'm actually learning a lot. And our viewers probably don't know, but before we start the podcast, Annie just gave me some ideas about my podcast, and it's just in her, naturally, and she tried to help me with some technical issues, and I think that's in your spirit, right? And I know in hospitality industry we have transferable skills. We have people skills that we could use in any industry, and I can see that those skills really help you in your business as well. And I mean, scooters, right? It's sustainable too. You are not using gas; it's electrical. And I love scooter, actually. I do have an electric scooter too. And I would say I'm having so much fun riding my electric scooter than my vehicle in downtown. Because I could come to this beautiful Stanley Park and enjoy the sunshine, and it's just so much fun, and it's easy to commute. So I think it was such a brilliant idea. Reflecting on your career, what were some key moments or decisions that significantly impacted your career, your path to success?
Hard to think of those big milestones because there were so many little moments that slowly moved the lever that unlocked the next chamber, if that makes sense. And I would say key moments was one of our co-founders, Keita, just being able to really find the right people that would be able to do this. I'd say the storming phase of our team was a really good key mover. When new teams form, sometimes we all know the storming phase is a thing that new teams do. But there's sometimes where everyone's trying to accommodate everyone and be nice, and you just need to break through that. Right. Say, hey, let's call it what it is. Hospitality people, dolphins. Social, happy, enjoy swimming, do what they can maneuver around things. I worked with 4 engineers, and engineers are what's the North Star? Let's make sure it's a critical point. Is this needed? What can we cut out? And they're very different. It's a very different mindset to have a hospitality person and engineers. Not saying that engineers don't think fluidly, but I think they do think a lot more logically. We had software engineers, a mechanical engineer, and we had a civic engineer, but he was more of our CEO and governing things.
Definitely.
And they were lovely people, and I'm really blessed to know them. Like, they're all incredible, and I learned so much from them, and hopefully I was able to bestow some knowledge on them. But I would say, like, at first, we were really trying to be polite and get along and everything, and we still did get along, but we really needed to have that conversation of, hey, let's talk about effective communication. Let's talk about being the only woman on this team, and it is what it is. There's a ratio disparity here, and that's okay, not just with engineers and hospitality workers, but also with female and male. And I felt like sometimes I wasn't getting questioned, but I definitely felt I was cast more doubt on my knowledge just because I wasn't an engineer, but I know my world. And so a pivotal moment for me, I think, was really harnessing my power and knowing what I did know and being okay with what I didn't know and leaning on them for that. But I really had to learn how to raise my voice a little bit more, not so much shouting, but really put a firm stance on it that I do know about relationship management.
Definitely.
I know about hospitality. I know how these GMs think. I know what hotels, like what our KPIs are, like what our key success factors are and what matters to hotels right now, especially in survival mode. And that helped not just ignite our partnerships. We built pretty quickly, but it really helped us become a little bit more aware of what each of us brought to the table and be thankful for that meal, like what it provided.
So you had such a diverse team, and I know that, for instance, I mean, an ex-company can have the best product ever in the world and the best team and engineers, but if you're not really experienced in sales, marketing, communication, who is going to sell their product or who's going to build that relationship, your customer base and all of that, right? So I think your skills are very important in every business. And I have seen some companies having great products but they were not necessarily doing customer experience and practicing customer experience and customer service, and what happens is the end result is not good, right? Those businesses are closing down, and I think at the end of the day the goal is to have happy customers, loyal customers and customer experience. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have your skills in any business. So, and being the only female in the startup company, I'm sure you may have some other challenges, but
yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Alden. I would say that not just customer care, we always say if we take care of our people, they will take care of our customers. But we also have to care about our product so our customers believe us. If we don't believe in our product, it comes off. It comes off as that. It comes off in how you build your software. It comes off in how you articulate when there's an issue and you problem solve and resolve and conflict resolution with your customers and with your team. And it can even be reflected in how you do your sales pitch. Some sales pitches, I'll hear them and it sounds so surface level because I know that they don't believe it. They're just told this is proper training, this is what you should be doing.
Exactly.
But we really cared, and I definitely got my hands dirty in this business with oil and actually taking hardware apart and rejigging these scooters, and I was all in, and it was sometimes overwhelming and sometimes it was very rejuvenating, and it helped me believe in myself a little bit more too. I think we build ourselves in these silos, and then when we're forced out of them, we don't know where we can fit. And I think hospitality workers in general were very underestimated during this pandemic, and we found there were so many opportunities for us because of our soft skills and what we were trained. So we needed to be able to have those conversations, those tough conversations, and not be so avoidant on them, and being able to admit our errors and understanding that sometimes the critical path of getting things done isn't going to be the best thing in the long run. You do have to have those longer conversations and meaningful ones and spend a little bit more time, but it goes a long way, because I'll be honest, I had hotels share a lot of information with me, and I loved it because I saw that they were only telling me that because they believed in us and they knew that their words would actually have an impact, and they did.
I know being an entrepreneur, starting a startup, I'm sure that was a intense process. A lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of people who wants to start their own business are watching us right now. So my question to you is basically about the process before officially opening your company. I'm sure you had to do a market research, you had to research about your competition, if there was a competition. And so what are the top 3 strategies you would recommend to someone to start and grow up their own business?
This is great. I would say that everything I do is not necessarily highly recommended, but But I would say the top 3 things that I did was I was okay with making mistakes, and you fail fast, you learn faster. And that was kind of what we had to do initially. And we did a lot of research, like you said, but as anyone should. Had a lot of conversations with people that I really trusted in my life to get a 360 review of what they thought about the product. Didn't let it get me down when it was negative, let me build it up, because I had to be able to back up the stances that they were saying. Here are some of the points of negativity, here are the risks and everything, and I had to be okay with those risks. And so really, if your cons list is longer than your pros list, that doesn't mean that the weight is unevenly distributed. You can find things that you're okay with taking those risks, and if things happen, you can only control what you can, right? So I think we really looked at risks such as liability clauses, okay, and insurance, making sure we had a good insurer. We probably delayed our launch by a few months because we were looking for not just an insurer and not just a good price point, but a Canadian insurer at that. And that was really important to us to keep it all within Canada. So it was so easy to do a startup if you wanted to try and like bootstrap your way through it and reach out to US companies. But we know that statistically Canadian companies always get bought out by US companies, and so we didn't want to already lean heavily on US corporations to be able to show that we can be successful and really help our communities. Not just help our communities in riding electric scooters, but our insurer was Canadian, making sure our lawyers were obviously Canadian, doing everything we could to produce things in Canada. Of course, the Segway 9-bot Max 3 G30s were not, but still, it was everything that we could control. We did our best to make sure it was Canadian, and I think that helped a lot. Trying to unlock associations to build a bigger network faster that way and spread our knowledge was a very great way to be successful. 360-degree conversations with your friends, families, and colleagues, people that you know that had startups or wanted to, and what kept them doing it and what made them quit, and being aware of those possibilities was really good. Keeping it within Canada was just a successful strategy when it came to networking and building a name for yourself, especially if you're helping local companies. They're even that much more willing to help you. And then the fail fast, learn faster tactic.
You know, I was looking into I was researching about startup companies, and I saw a study that shows the most successful startups are the ones that it was about the factors that makes a startup successful. So number 1 factor was the timing of the startup, and everything else was coming after. So I think the timing of the startup was over 50% in overall success of a startup. So, which is very interesting to me. And you started during COVID times, and
timing was a little bit off for a lot of people in their opinion.
No, I think
but it was good timing.
Exactly, right?
It's like when the stock market goes down, do you also back out, or do you wait for it to go down enough that you buy in more, right?
Exactly, right.
You either double down or you get out.
And I know some restaurants, they even made more income during COVID times because maybe they were not necessarily making enough revenue, and then during COVID times the takeout system was perfect for maybe that specific size of restaurant and the size of the restaurant, and they made so much income, which is amazing. COVID time.
And then even more restaurants have patios now because of it, so it's better for everybody, especially summertime and for sangria at that point. I would say that we were pioneers in our concept and in how we were finding the solutions and the way that we built our business model. There were definitely learning opportunities, you know, taking on the sunk cost early by taking care of the cost of the fleets and giving them to the hotels, but I don't regret it. And I always told my founders when we were shutting things down, I said, at the end of the day, reflect on yourselves and remember we did meet our mission. Our mission was to get people places and connect them to the community, and we did that. We didn't have, you know, it be a SMART goal of reach 30 hotels and all this stuff. Like, we accomplished what we needed to. We were one of the first. People will still remember us for being a fun product. We brought joy in people's lives when sometimes some people might not have found that much joy. There might have been people traveling at that time when it was like very limited traveling restrictions, and thought, oh, this isn't going to be the same because Victoria is not going to look the same when I'm there. But then they found our fleets and they were still able to find joy.
Exactly.
And just being able to provide that to even one person was a win for us.
As a young professional and entrepreneur, you have unique experiences in your career. You are an entrepreneur, you started a business, you are managing large operations in the hotels. And so how do you set and achieve your goals? What is your process of goal setting? Can you walk us through your process?
Oh my goodness. Not always consistent.
Because you talked about also sometimes you don't make plans, but one thing I see myself to say, okay, I'm starting a business tomorrow, but I think in order for you to do that, you should have certain experiences and vision. If you have, that's what I'm saying. I mean, compliments to you.
Absolutely.
If you didn't have that vision to realize the opportunities you may have around you, you could have not started a business, right? So I'm really curious about your goal setting process.
I would say that when you're starting the goal setting, it's not always good to be practical in that mindset. Sometimes I just take a blank piece of paper, I set a timer, and I write all my wish list of what I could possibly do in 5 years. And then the next day I sit on it, go back, and I circle the things that already kind of are within my current path and things that are outside of that. And I think it's really good to have a couple things that you don't think are as reachable, or if they are reachable, they require a little bit more effort, and then things that are within means. And having a good balance of that is really important. And then you break it down. Am I perfect at goal setting? Absolutely not. And I would never ever say that. I do checklists every day of what I need to get done. And of that list builds by the end of the day. I've added probably 50% more items, and then maybe sometimes checked off only 25% of the original one. But you carry it over, and then you're always taught if you write it down 3 times, you might as well erase it because it's not obviously pertinent enough to you that you're ever going to prioritize it. But there's those rule of thumbs, right? And when it comes to goal setting, I think it's good to have 3 goals that are key when it comes to something that's driving that bigger vision of who you want to become. But at the end of the day, it's how we talk to ourselves. It's not necessarily everything that's written on paper. It's the narrative that we allow ourselves to believe of what we're capable of. I could write down 3 goals of I'm going to run 10 kilometers a day. I'm going to only make my lunches at home and coffees at home, which I actually do most of the time, but I would say about 90% of the time. And I will attend one networking event a month. I can write it down, but then it's the narrative we tell ourselves of, okay, 10 kilometers a day. Oh, do I want to do that every day? Or when I'm on that 10 kilometer run, I'll be thinking, oh, I love it. This is endorphins. But then the next day, am I thinking, okay, that was really great. We're going to do that again. Or, oh, I'm not capable of it. And so when we start to believe we're not capable, we become that, right? And that's kind of how it goes about goal setting. So what I do is I have this beautiful sign, you're doing effing great. And I have that in my bathroom, so every morning I'm brushing my teeth and I'm reading that and I laugh a little bit and I remind myself of that. And I think about the things that I am doing really well and the things I need to improve on, and that's okay. But I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and we tend to be our worst critics and our best critics sometimes, and it's helpful to have that inner voice, but it's also helpful to tell that inner voice, you're not being that productive thinking this way. I would say the best strategy for goal setting is sitting down, brainstorming, figuring out what actually ignites your soul. Because if you're passionate about it and you already are kind of doing it, you're more likely to be successful.
You have talked about a very important thing that, writing it down, right? I'm actually practicing that. I'm to gather my thoughts and put it on the piece of paper, so it's more organized. And I think this podcast is helping me a lot in terms of, putting my questions on a piece of paper, because once you do that, you are actually organizing your thought. And you talked about running 10 kilometers a day. I think it's very important to set. And
it's okay if you don't meet those goals all the time. I think it's a matter of, do you get discouraged by it or do you get encouraged by it? And if it's once a week and then it just doesn't work out because of your schedule, I know that you're a customer service manager, right? So you have a job beyond this. This is a great passion to have, that you can move that meter a little bit and give yourself that, be gentle a little bit and know that you're also starting out, and you're going to figure out the schedule. You're going to figure out how long it actually takes to edit this, how long it actually takes to write prompts and everything to set yourself up for success.
And also you talked about being kind to yourself. I think that's very important. That's something that I'm also learning too, that sometimes at times we can be hard on ourselves. Yes, we have goals. If we don't achieve our goals, sometimes we are being too hard on ourselves. And we need to be kind to ourselves, right? And in order to achieve a goal, we need to know where are we standing, right? So we set up a goal, we try. If we fail, or like, we need to understand our condition, right? I mean, in order to run 10 kilometers a day, you need to know how is your endurance first. And then
I'm not running 10 kilometers a day, by the way. I just want to clear that up just in case people are thinking that. It was just a nice number. It was a nice number.
I was under the impression that you ran here. I'm not sure.
No, I was going to, but then I remembered I would be so sweaty if I was here, and I didn't. I had to look at your video in advance, and thank goodness I did right before I left. But I was like, does he film the whole body? Because then I'd just be in leggings and a nice shirt. So let's not do that. But I did think about that because it's just such a beautiful. I mean, the seawall is a gorgeous place to be.
We have the Lionsgate Bridge just behind us.
We do. And we're surrounded by mountains. I mean, this is, no offense to Toronto. Toronto's amazing for diversity of food and everything, but I miss the West Coast so much. I grew up on the island, so I grew up just a couple blocks away from the ocean and surrounded by forests, and I just really missed trees. I know, trees and mountains. When people ask me, why are you going back to the West Coast? My family, my sister and my parents and her family, and the mountains and the trees and the ocean air.
Definitely.
Very different than lake air.
I love ocean. I mean, I don't think I can live in a place where there's no ocean.
I mean, even Hong Kong, I always thought that, I had the impression before moving to Hong Kong in 2015 that Hong Kong would be a concrete jungle. But Toronto is a concrete jungle. Hong Kong is a huge city, over 8 million people, half of them underground in the subways, if I'm being honest. But then there's just, it boasts magnificent views. You can take a mini bus 30 minutes away and be in the middle of nowhere hiking. You can't do that in Toronto. So I felt like Hong Kong was a lot closer to home for me, even though it physically wasn't.
As someone who successfully led and managed your own business, what qualities do you think are crucial for effective leadership?
Accountability is the first one I think of. Owning where your mistake is, but not to a point where, of course, it deflates the team or discourages anyone, but reminding them that you're human too is really important. People tend to kind of forget that when you're in a leadership role. They lean to you for support, but it goes both ways sometimes. And I think one of the crucial qualities is humility, and it's accountability, and it's open communication. It's closed loop communication where you come back and you follow up. You say, hey, we're going to talk about this a month from now. You put that in your calendar, set it as a full day reminder, and you actually do follow up on that. That's important to people. We talk about that in the hotel industry, about how if a guest arrives for check-in and the room's not ready, because they arrive early probably for check-in, as guests tend to do, that it's important to give them an estimated time of when they're going to hear from you, because it's painful to just never know and have this infinite open space of waiting.
And you show that you care, right?
Some people, it feels like you've been waiting for an hour, and in reality it's been probably 15 minutes, but it feels like that because no one has let you know, hey, you're on my mind, you're a priority, and I will follow up with you by this time. And so follow through is really important. It helps people know that you are committed. There's so many different job descriptions you'll go on, and one of the tasks will be, leader is really good at reaching consensus with a group. I think consensus is not really what we should be after. We should be after commitment. You can be in a room and everyone nods silently and agrees to what their leader said, and as soon as they're at the door, they're saying, I don't really think so. I don't think that's good. A couple years ago, that was the case for me at one of my workplaces, and I think it's better to, in a room, hey, if you think that this could be better, how do we make this better? And collaborating and making it the team's decision and not just coming from the top. There are going to be times where it does come from the top and it trickles down to you as a middle manager and you don't really have a choice. But in the ones that you do have control of, people don't like meetings. They don't like meetings that could have been emails, yada, yada. But sometimes it is helpful to just have an exercise, even if it's a 30-minute meeting. It sucks sometimes, but getting people in a room together, brainstorming and making it feel like their opinion mattered and that they could put their opinion in it, even if they don't, they know that it was opened up to them. They were given the opportunity. So I think being a leader that is focused on collaboration, and that is how you achieve commitment within your team and buy-in early. It's also my way of conflict resolution. So there's all these different styles of conflict resolution, and I'm collaborative. I would rather spend a little bit more time and find something together that we curate and make as the solution, rather than feeling like you're mouth feeding someone or you're competing and saying my idea is better.
These are great points. I think I will have loved to work with a leader that you just described. You talked about accountability. I think accountability is very important. Taking the responsibility and being a leader, and sometimes in some workplaces, accountability. I can't imagine a leader without taking an accountability, because yes, you are managing a team, but you are part of that team too, because you talked about some great things, and that you need to be connected with your team, and in order for your team to commit and take an action, you need to empower your team too, right? We work together, but most importantly, yes, as you said, in a meeting, people can say yes, 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 but as soon as they leave the door, we actually know that they were sincere about what they said during the meeting, or would they actually take an action. I think real leaders, they take the accountability. Yes, it's my responsibility, but they are actually able to relay the message to their team and connect it with the team. So thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah.
I'm actually very curious about this because lately I have been thinking about, I like to travel the world, and I like to maybe start my own business and online business, but at the same time I'm working in a corporate job. And then after talking to some of my friends who has owned their own businesses, and they say, well, if you open your own business, I'm sure you will work more than your schedule right now in a corporate company. My question to you is, balancing the demands of running a business with your personal life can be tough. So how do you balance your professional and your personal life?
So I always find that work-life balance is funny to me, because you would look up a scale on Google, and most often than not, it shows as equal parts, 50-50. Work-life balance is different for everyone. I'm happy with a 60-40. I'm happy with 60% being work and 40% being not, because I get a lot of joy out of my work. Are there long days? Yes, there's long days. Am I proud about my work? Yes, because I put pride behind it. And that sometimes means more time. And do I have functioning anxiety because I'm worried I'm going to miss something? Yes, I have it, and that's okay. And we're not perfect, and nor were we ever made to be. The universe did not create perfect beings. They created people who were willing to try and keep fighting when they're down. And I would say, when it comes to work-life balance, when you're talking about that, when I had my startup, the 1-800 number went to me first for customer care. So my front desk agents at all these different hotels that sometimes had issues, they would call the 1-800 number expecting to be dispatched to like an actual call center. They would hear my voice, and I was always on property to do the launches and the training with the front office teams before launching our fleets. The first thing I would say is, hello, thank you so much for calling Cruise. You have reached Annie. How can I assist you today? And they would say, Annie, is that you? Yes, we're a local company. We have not outsourced this part of our work. So, and that can happen at any time of the night. I got calls at like 2 a.m. and we set it up so that it would go to me first, and then it would go to one of our other co-founders, Marcus, and then it would go to a different one, Regan. And we would switch it up every couple months, because at first it was just me for about 6 months. And I said, This is a disaster, because I also need to not have to worry about my phone. So you were
receiving calls for customer service matters as well?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So I was all in. I was training, I was doing the sales, I was business development, but I was also very on the front of the relationship and the operations. And I was like, when things weren't, I was a maintenance person for the first little bit. I discovered a lot of things that Segway at that time was also learning from me, and I was learning from them, and I was on a lot of calls with Beijing, and it was formidable time to be alive, to say the least. Felt more connected, honestly, during those 2 years sometimes than I had previously, just really ingrained in the essence of what we had built. But work-life balance was a little bit tricky. I think I got better over the years of, we had those conversations. We started rotating who would get that first call. If it rang a couple times, it would go to the next person. So it allowed me to have a little bit of ease of mind. But then...
So can we say that if you start a business, you will put some extra hours for sure.
You will put some extra hours in. It's a double-edged sword. You have control over your schedule, but then you don't, because your schedule is based on the success of your product sometimes. Not to say that you can't build a startup 8 hours a day and not have a successful startup. You can definitely, if you're highly productive during all 8 of those hours. But I mean, who is, unless you have, well, I had a really great coffee today, but but I don't think anyone is built to have every single minute of an 8-hour shift, including, let's say, a lunch that you have probably at the side of your desk, and have all those be highly productive. And you have to be okay with sacrificing things in the long run. I would say I'm a reverse engineer thinker. So I think about what I want and what I'm willing to give up in order to have that.
Right.
And that means putting a lot of hours in early into my career and giving it the best I have while I can have that energy. And one day when I have a family, so I'm not being woken up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. by a baby and all those things. So work-life balance, how I'm doing it right now, is I'll write down my to-do list. I will, at least that's helpful to kind of go into the next day and already have that prepared and know what you hope the day. To-do list is just, this would be really great if this happened, and then maybe I could achieve a little bit more than what I think I can do.
You know, this is great. Yesterday, actually, I watched a video about one of the comedians. He was making fun of how some of the, famous CEOs how they look like. Mm-hmm. So he was saying that one of the journalists who watched that CEO because he posted about the day with this ex-CEO. Mm-hmm. Okay, he goes to bed at around 8:30 p.m. He wakes up at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. He checks his emails, and then he exercises, and he drinks a coffee, and then he checks his emails again. So he was making fun, and he was saying, so it looks like he was keep checking his emails. I don't know who sends him emails like that all day, or like, how can you sleep around 8:30? Mm-hmm. And so he was making fun of about. So I guess you need to find a partner who is okay with that and mm-hmm. who can go to. And
really good blackout curtains. Really good blackout curtains.
And he was saying that I go to bed probably after 3:30 a.m. So, and yes, it's impressive to hear stories like that, but I'm definitely not that person. I mean, yes, as much as I like to organize my day and as much as I like to be more proactive, mm-hmm. I mean, sleep is important too. Mm-hmm. I need to have my good sleep and I can focus on my day, because to me, I'm learning that how important mental health is, mm-hmm. and your sleep and food can impact your mental health, which I didn't know. I mean, in terms of how a food can impact your brain, for instance, which I didn't know before, and what you eat and thoughts become things and mm-hmm. all of that, and I think that's to do with health too. So.
It's so funny because I used to, when I was in university, I was doing a 2-year course condensed into 1 year, so we had 8 full-time courses, and I was probably getting 4.5 hours of sleep. And my friends were saying, you are the only person, Annie, that we know could actually thrive on that many hours of sleep. And I would say, imagine if I got 8 hours of sleep, how much more productive I would be. The fact that you think I'm so capable at 4.5 hours, imagine. The world's not ready, and that's why I don't do it.
So you are saying that you sleep less?
I don't sleep for very long, but there's definitely days where I get really good sleep and I catch up on it, and I'm always in a sleep deficit. But I would say that, yeah, I do agree with you about how you have to have a partner that's willing to support you through that. Definitely times where my boyfriend calls and he says, are you still at work? I'm like, well, if I'm not home in that space that's only 480 square feet because we live in Vancouver downtown, then yeah, I'm definitely not out and about drinking at a bar. I'm at work. And I put a lot of pride on writing my name on the day. Do I write it on the day every day? No, I don't. But I think there's a lot of pressure in society to make every day count. And that to people means the pressure of having to do that. Wake up early, read the newspaper, go out for a bike ride or a run before work, all these things. And it doesn't have to look like that all the time to feel good about yourself. But it is, at the end of the day, reflecting for me, especially during the pandemic, I put a lot more mental health on. Nice, thank you. It was agreeing with me about mental health. Woo, mental health.
Bless you.
But I would say that during the pandemic, I couldn't make up the excuse anymore that I'm too busy to focus on myself. And so now I reflect, and near the end of my day, I'll say, did I do anything for myself today other than my career? And it's not so much, oh, did I just work for the company or anything? Like, did I learn anything today? Did I do something that was for me and me alone? And it could be just reading a chapter of your book and stuff like that, right?
You are right. I mean, there is a pressure from the society that, okay, being productive. Sometimes we need to enjoy doing nothing. In the second episode with my guest speaker, Sarah was talking about a term, which I forgot. It's an Italian term. He was saying that he has been practicing.
Oh, I was just thinking about that. I don't know if there's one in Italia. Yeah, or it's like Norwegian or something. I think
it's basically about...
it's about like how you're not doing anything for the day.
Enjoying for doing nothing.
Yeah, and people congratulate you. Yeah. And I believe in that so much, so wholeheartedly.
We need to do that, I think. We need to enjoy doing nothing, right?
Absolutely. There's a term called Herkel-Dirkling. I've gotten really into it. Not physically as in doing it all the time, but I love the term. And it's about honestly doing nothing and just like curling up and being like a little potato. And I joke with my boyfriend, I was like, I just want to be a potato today. I want to be like a little roasted potato, like warm and cozy, but like soft.
Again, I want to learn.
Herkel-Dirkle.
Herkel-Dirkle.
It's pretty good.
Okay, today I want to be a Herkel-Dirkle.
Yeah, today on my agenda, Herkel-Dirkling. I want to I strive one day to have the pride to just write that down in my agenda. Or like put it out of office, Herkel-Dirkling, and be okay about that.
Looking back, what advice would you give it to your younger self when you were just starting your career?
Be prepared. That's not even advice. What advice would I give to my younger self that was starting her career? I started when I was 14 years old as a dishwasher in the tea house across from my house. Wow. But I would say that wasn't really starting my career. I was just working. I was just starting to work, getting into the workforce.
Those experiences served you very well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really like that I kind of grew up through the roots from, a back of house dishwasher all the way to where I am today. I take a lot of pride in knowing I had to climb that way. I think what we talked about earlier about our inner voice, and my inner voice sometimes was very harsh, and I had to start to eliminate in my verbiage the word should, because should puts on such a heavy burden sometimes in what we think. Like, I should be better than this. I shouldn't have made that mistake. I should be at this point in my career. My mama used to always stop me in my path when I would say things like that, and she'd say, you don't need to be anything. There isn't a point that you need to have achieved by this point. You get to determine that, but no one else is putting that pressure on you. And so kind of releasing the foot on the gas sometimes is really healthy. I think if I could have told my younger self something, it would have been to have done more preventative maintenance on my mental health a little bit earlier.
I was actually just thinking about that.
I think I learned that a little bit. Definitely. Not too late. Not like you and I ever learned anything too late in life, but to have learned than to have never broached the topic. But
no, definitely. That's what I would actually tell my younger self. Mm-hmm. To learn how to learn about mental health and how to protect your mental health and practice that.
I think what I wish I had told myself was, you're going to get in trouble and that's okay. I always joke about how my parents set me up for failure because my older sister always got in trouble and I never did. But then when I got in trouble later on in life, I didn't know how to handle that because I had always been such a good kid. And when my mom would say stop and I was running, I would quite literally stop like we were playing the game Freeze. And I'm a people pleaser. Hospitality people tend to be that, and it's okay to be a people pleaser, but also to not be taken advantage of. And I tell myself that kindness is not a weakness either, nor should it ever be underestimated. But I think my best advice to myself was to be softer, because I am a go-getter. I'm very ambitious. I still don't regret how I spent my time. I spent a couple times where I slept in my office with just a housekeeping blanket over me, and those were the days, right? I'm a different person because of those experiences, and I don't regret it. Mm-hmm. But I think when I got in trouble, I got very paranoid, and I wasn't sure who to trust and all these things, and it's because
you know how to handle.
Yeah, and I hadn't trained my mind of how to even process getting in trouble and how to move through that, because I just didn't have enough experience being in that position, and so it really threw me for a loop. So I think getting better prepared for that, and how can someone prepare possibly for that? But I think it is about when you get caught doing, like, not caught, but when you get in trouble, it's yes, you should take ownership and be accountable for it, but you should be able to figure out how to let it go. And how do you let it go? Everyone has their different coping mechanisms. I think I probably like wrote it all down about like all my feelings, and I wrote down probably for, it took me a couple months to get over it, but I would say like once a week for about 3 weeks, and then as I was writing, it got softer and softer, and I worked through it. But there needs to be a process, and you need to kind of figure out as soon as it happens how to deal with it and be okay with improving it. But I thankfully didn't hold it in, but I think some people probably do.
Yeah, you are very right. I think suppressing emotions is not a good idea. And you talked about people pleasing in the hospitality, and I think that's the part I was really struggling in my life, that being also in the hospitality industry, people pleasing and helping people has been part of my entire life. But I think at times I really struggle to differentiate between helping people pleasing in our professional life and my personal life. I realized that I think I was confused about, I think I was treating people in my personal life like the people in my professional life, that always pleasing, sometimes not even being able to say no to the things, just to focus on to make that person happy, happy. And you realize, okay, what about you? What about me? And then you learn things the hard way sometimes, right? And your heart gets broken, and life teaches you that, okay, you need to focus on yourself, learn. And when we are kids, we don't learn these things, like that. Sometimes people can hurt you, right? You think that, oh, everyone is good, the world is good, I guess everyone is thinking like me, or everyone is like me, but life teaches you lessons.
Yeah. And just on like the quick topic of heartbreak and stuff, I've always believed that soulmates are not just one person in your life. They're people that you needed to have met to change you pivotally, and you're not getting really pushed in a direction, you're getting pulled in a direction. And I think it's really important for us to kind of hear that a little bit more. We think of, like, I really struggled with the idea of quitting a job. There was one time where I did not want to quit because I didn't want to feel like I failed my team, and I didn't want to feel like I failed myself or anything. But after I did it, I thought, why didn't I do this earlier? I wish I had. And so we just get so caught in the concept that quitting is a bad thing. I didn't quit, I actually transferred, but it was just like leaving that place, and it's hard to overcome those feelings of, like, is this a society thing that I've now ingrained in my being, that quitting means equals failure? And I had to unlearn that, and it took me 6 months to unlearn that in that period of time in my life, and be okay with, no, I'm not quitting, I'm choosing myself.
Exactly.
And that's not even okay. That should be always.
Go, right, as you said, learning to let go things that are not healthy to your life.
And when you become more of who you should be, you're able to love the people who deserve that love. Like, it unlocks this capacity within you that was blocked by that. So, yeah, there's strength in that.
I'm not sure if you have mentioned to our viewers that, yes, we talked about your startup company and your entrepreneurship side, but you're also now managing a large operation, right? You are working for one of the large hotels in Vancouver, looking after event side of the operation.
Yes.
You are the event manager.
Very fun.
So despite your many accomplishments, what are your future goals and aspirations? Or I should ask you this way, what motivates you to push forward? Because sometimes we cannot push forward, right? Sometimes. For me, I was also very determined about achieving things, and I realized that, yes, I keep achieving things maybe, but I don't enjoy the process, As soon as I achieve something, I think about the next thing, but I don't really enjoy what I just achieved. I need to slow down, or maybe not do anything for a while,
Yeah, I would say I was so fixated on this new job and really trying to get to understand, like, what is my job? Because I always say it takes you about a year to get to understand, like, what your job actually is and what's required of you, and then you take another year to harness those and, like, refine it. But my goals, I actually just had a meeting about this, about my career path. My goal is to reach to have a positive impact on the most amount of people, I think. And it's not necessarily like I need to be world renowned or anything. It's not fame or anything like that, but trying to support more people is a goal. I really would love to be a regional vice president and be able to support multiple hotel teams and use my education a little bit more when it comes to consulting with management teams and being able to help them harness their powers and understand each other better so that the walls of communication are taken down. However, yeah, I think my overall goal is to, as I mentioned previously, leave people in places better than I found them. And that's an overarching goal in everything I do. It's not necessarily just for my career.
That's amazing.
It's even, I have a goal when I go to a restaurant to be the best customer that they've had that day. Does that mean I have a conversation all the time with them and keep them from their job? No, it doesn't mean that. But if I read the room and the server looks like they're having a rough day, being a little bit more patient.
I really like what you said. Positive impact on people. That sounds amazing, right? Whatever you do, wherever you go, positive impact.
It's little things. Like even like bus driver, always saying thank you when you get off. You think it doesn't actually have an impact, but I think it probably does, because the days where they don't hear it, it resonates more. They realize they haven't heard it. And there's a lot of jobs out there, hospitality included, that are very thankless jobs for some of our teams. And taking that moment and saying, hey, I really appreciate you for doing that. I recognize that wasn't something that's in your standard day-to-day task, but you did it, and I'm really thankful for that. Just taking those moments. So I want to be able to do that in my career for a greater amount of hotels and being able to trickle that down. But I want to also just have that as an embodiment to leave people in places better than I found them.
Great.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Speaking of fun facts, what's a surprising hobby or thing that people don't know about you?
I really like to write poetry. I don't do it consistently lately, and I want to get back into that. It's a really nice way to just kind of let your mind flow onto paper. People know that I've been starting to put together a book, and that I have been putting together since 2018. It's been a long time, and it's just kind of a start and stop project. And it's more that I want to self-publish it for the sake of knowing I got it out there.
Yeah.
Not so much of I hope people buy it, but just getting it off your chest in a little way. Thank you so much. I'll send you a signed copy. But that's probably something that not everyone knows. Probably only my close friends, or occasionally I'll post little chunks of it on Instagram. Inspiration between my mom and I, because I'm using her photography to pair with some of the with some of my poems. So that's one thing.
What is the stage now with the book?
It is together in the order that it needs to be. It's a matter of putting it into the right software, and then I already have the ISBN number and everything that I need for the book to be published. It's just putting it into the software and then finding a way to get it published. And there's a lot of YouTube videos on it, but there needs to be a faster guide. Everyone has different ways and different companies, and there's Amazon and all these things. I ordered someone that I got to know through a Facebook group. I ordered one of her books, but I just really didn't like how it came out. Not the writing itself, but just how it was printed. It looked really odd. The margins were off, everything like that. So that made me a little bit nervous about the product, but I'm getting there. It's in progress. And I guess the only other thing is, as I mentioned, I'm adopted. And so my other start and stop project is searching for my birth family. And that's more just, who knows if they're alive at this point, if we're being honest. But I'm constantly reminded more about that when I go and donate blood, and they ask you, is there any known illnesses in your family? I don't know. I have no idea. And I was abandoned when I was 2 weeks old in China. So it's pretty challenging. There's a lot of organizations, but this is one thing. I'm someone who has a very strong internal locus of control, meaning that I believe my efforts will be rewarded by results. But this is the one project that isn't really like that. You can put in hours. I've been on calls with China. I've been WhatsApp. I added WeChat. All these different things. I'm on a poster, and in part of all these organizations that help you search. But it doesn't really lead to anything. And so it's about kind of controlling your expectations and understanding that for me, it's become more of it's okay to never find them, but it's not okay to not have ever tried. And so finding success in things that don't really have a destination is okay, and this project is definitely the one that reminds me of that the most.
Wow.
So not really a hobby, but more of an interest.
Like the things you said, sometimes I feel like you make such a meaningful statements that I need to pause and process it.
Thanks.
And sometimes we think that we have obstacles in life until we realize that others have more obstacles than us, or we think that our obstacle is the biggest until we realize there's even bigger.
But that's another thing too, right? Is that we're taught to compare all the time and to be grateful for what we have, which is a good practice to have, don't get me wrong, but the measure of pain or stress or anything that your problem has, even if you perceive it as smaller than my problem might be, doesn't invalidate you still having that feeling. Like, you're allowed to have that, and I think feeling validated in that. There's so many times where I would, as a kid, complain about stuff and then be told, oh, but at least you're not in a third world country not being fed. And yes, that is true, those are facts, but that doesn't invalidate either of those facts.
Exactly. And we cannot undermine our feelings, right? And saying, oh, I have a pain on my arm, well, at least you have an arm. No, it's not like that.
Oh my gosh, my parents would always tell me, oh, just chop it off, you won't feel it anymore. I would actually feel a greater pain, I'm pretty sure.
I wish that was easy, right? Oh, my heart is broken. Okay,
just rip it out. Rip it out.
What's the best piece of advice you have ever received, and how it impacted your life? It could be a quote too, to be honest. I like to read quotes, and I think quotes are really helping me to process things sometimes. And
I have two quotes, and one is from my grandma, actually. So I was named after my grandma, and I had a really good I still have a good relationship with her. She's not earthbound anymore, but she used to, whenever I asked her for best piece of advice, she would always just say, be kind to others. It's the most simple piece of advice, but it holds true. And she's told me that ever since I was little, because I'd always ask her that question, and it was always like the same thing that she would say. And just having that, like, be kind to others, how simple is that? It comes at no cost to do that.
Advice could actually save the world. I wish everyone was practicing that.
And so I would say, if you can, like today, if you're listening to this podcast, the Weltons, welcome, and thank you for staying this long and listening to us. But if you can, after this, call a friend, text someone, tell them that you love them, let them know you're thinking of them, go to a coffee shop, tip the barista nice, like do something that makes you a better version of yourself, because that starts from today onwards, and you get to make that choice every single day. And I would say a quote is when I worked at Cactus Club, and they had it, your attitude determines your altitude, and that's a big one. So at work, I got Employee of the Month, and so a lot of people had written on this framed certificate. And one of the big things that I was really surprised about, but really grateful for, was everyone was always saying, even when you have a lot going on, you always make time to care for us, and thank you for loving us the way that you do, or thank you for always being optimistic. There were times where I was really struggling, and I probably blacked out of anything socially driven at work, and I was just fixated on my job and getting it done. And I was still helping people, and I didn't even kind of realize I was doing that. It's just innately a quality that I tried to do, and obviously I've instilled it in myself that it's second nature, and I don't even realize I'm doing it. But I'm also just like, I joke around. If I'm struggling and people ask, how are you doing? I was like, oh, everything's great. Perfect day. Couldn't be better. Wish it on anyone. But I do it in a joking way, and there are times where I am more serious, and I talk to my senior managers and say, hey, can I have a one-on-one with you? Can we talk through this and figure out how I can better manage my time? Because that's a big thing. I get distracted easily. I know that about myself. It's been consistent feedback. We're still a work in progress, and that's okay. But I think remaining optimistic is a superpower. It's really easy to sink and let yourself sink lower and lower and lower. But choosing to be helium instead of sand is
I think
good.
this was a great message to leave our viewers with. Thank you so much, Annie.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me. Well, like I said, thank you so much for having me here today, Alton. I just like to pull with you on the YouTube video. This is amazing. And I told him that one day, I hope that he makes these for his guests because this is so cool. Made in Turkey, product of Turkey. I'm really happy to have been here and not just in conversation, which I always, like I said, believe should never be timed when it comes to something that should be more of an open conversation. I think that when we talk out loud to ourselves, we also help reinforce messages we've been trying to be more intentional about as well. And I've learned a lot from this, and I've taken a lot from this. I knew before arriving here that this would be valuable to me. Hopefully it's valuable to you.
So much, Annie. I mean, I think this is a great thing to hear from you as my speaker, because you are one of the first speakers of this podcast.
Yeah.
And I would like to thank you again so much for your trust in me and for your support to the podcast, because you became part of something that is not really big right now.
But I think, like we were saying before, I said if you get to the point where you reach episode 10 or episode 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, I'm so happy to have been one of those episodes that led you to that point.
Exactly.
And like we tend to celebrate those big wins. You know how people get those big balloons, helium balloons, like yay, 50,000 subscribers and stuff. It's so cool to be part of that number, not just that
So
that
thank you so
50th.
much.
So thank you so much for having me here. Bye.